All right, guys, welcome back to the White Noise Podcast. For everybody who's new, my name is James. I'm joined by my homie, my buddy, Kelvin Franklin.
Hello.
It's been a bit. So, backstory, because I know a lot of you guys are probably from the Reaction channel. Backstory, White Noise and that whole name came from this podcast back in the day. Kelvin and I used to work in the same restaurant together. And then we started going to movies together because we were both nerds about movies and we just adore movies. And then we started doing a podcast together. It kind of fell off. I got busy. The Reaction channel took off. We put that up. Anyway, this is kind of an attempt to bring it all back to square one. I'm really excited, dude. I miss podcasts. I miss podcasting. It's great to have you on, dude. It's not even have you on, like just to do this again with you, man.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm really excited to get back into it and start talking film again.
Yeah, so we have we have some segments on the show. We have a great show for you guys playing today. We're going to be talking Shang-Chi spoiler review. We got, movie news that we're going to be talking, and then we have a bit of a personal movie quiz sort of thing so you guys can get to know us. So let's just get into the show. Okay, so I figured, normally we're not going to do this, but I figured since, especially people don't know you, but if there's new listeners to the podcast, they just don't know either of us, I figured we could do kind of a personal Q&A quiz sort of thing, but the nerdy film lover in me wanted to put a twist on it, so it's all movie related. So it's trying to figure out your personal psychology through questions about movies.
That is awesome. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, all right, man. It's so fun to be back. I love podcasts. Okay, so I'll ask you a question, and then I guess I'll just answer the question myself, and we'll go from there. And if you want to riff or talk about whatever, we'll talk about whatever. And if you guys want to put questions in the comments, of course, do that too. So the number one question, of course, Kelvin, that any movie lover asks any other movie lover is, "What's your favorite movie at the time?" Because if you're a true movie lover, you don't have an all-time favorite movie, in my opinion.
That is a great question. As far as right now goes, one of my favorite movies would honestly be Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. That's one of my go-to answers.
Really? Harry
Yes.
Potter and the Goblet of Fire? Dude, so that's since we talked, I have become a huge Harry Potter fan because we started watching Harry Potter movies and different things like that. But Goblet of Fire, really?
Yeah, that is one of my favorites. I think it's so mature in its approach and so interesting. The fact that they have the Triwizard Tournament and Harry, the youngest of everyone, obviously chosen and has to compete against all these other heavy hitters who are way better than he is. And each challenge is raised to the max. And so it starts with the dragon and then the underwater creatures and the whole battle under sea. And then with the maze and the whole twist at the end. I know they're books, but still, the whole
spoilers, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
No,
And
just
the
in
whole
case.
Introduction of Lord Voldemort coming back and that whole arc, how it progresses beautifully to where people don't believe it at first and there's no possible way he's back, but Harry's the only one who knows and he has to convince everybody else. And then the whole arc through 5, 6, 7, part 1 and 2 I thought was beautiful, and I love that whole start in the graveyard. It's so raw and real, and I was like, this is what I want Harry Potter to be, and it was from there on out, minus episode 6. But
Did you ever read the books?
Yes, I did actually.
Okay.
Later on in life.
Understanding that, I'm almost done with Death. I haven't started Deathly Hallows yet, but I reread the books, and a lot of people who read the books don't like Goblet of Fire, which is why it's kind of interesting that Goblet of Fire is your favorite movie, because I at least feel like it's kind of a bad book adaptation. I can understand how you'd like the movie on its own, but if you read the book is a completely different story. It's a totally different story.
Oh, it definitely is. But I mean, as far as just cinematically to me, the way they were able to pull all those things off, because we see movies try and do the whole tournament aspect before. The only
That's
one
true.
that I've thought worked in the modern age after Harry Potter was Hunger Games, to be honest with you.
Yeah, pretty much. Catching Fire, in my opinion, the best.
For sure.
But yeah, I agree. So I guess my favorite movie is my go-to. This hasn't changed since the year and a half it's been since we did this podcast. Is Whiplash, dude. The best movie ever. Damien Chazelle's best movie. Everybody knows him for La La Land, but it's and the thing is, I hate jazz. I don't like drumming. I don't like jazz. I'm not the biggest movie nerd on the planet. So a movie about a jazz drummer is like, kill me. But like, it's a great movie. It's so well done. J.K. Simmons kills it. He completely deserved the Oscar. Everybody, just the cinematography, the directing, everything. I think it's way better than La La Land. And that's not to say La La Land is bad. It's like, look, if you like La La Land though, freaking Whiplash is a million times better. So it's one of my favorite movies of all time. And right now it keeps the number one spot and has kept the number one spot for a really long time. It's going to be hard to beat that, to be honest. It's a great movie, man.
Oh, agreed. I love and remember the first time I saw that movie and I was blown away. I was like, holy crap, how the hell did he get away with all the things that went on in this movie? And it's such an interesting testament because you look at that whole dynamic between the two of them and it really is like a Batman-Joker dynamic. And it's so palpable because it's in the real world, so you don't see that as being something that you counter in every day, but it does happen.
I've never thought about it as a Batman-Joker relationship. That's a really interesting way of putting it. It is kind of. And it's just an interesting commentary on creatives, and it's such a different take than the classic take is always kind of like very inspirational and very like, follow your dream, which is not bad, but it's not the most realistic all the time. Whereas this felt very raw and real, and it asked like some interesting psychological questions. Anyway, enough ranting about Whiplash. We'll if you want a separate podcast on Whiplash, call me up. It'll happen. So I guess question number 2. What movie character do you relate to the most?
Great question. Out of all time,
just off the top of your head, right? I mean, obviously we could do this forever.
I'm gonna go with Tom from 500 Days of Summer.
Gosh.
I've lived that one before, and I've done those things and fought for those relationships that never worked out. And you see that whole dynamic and arc to where he really doesn't change throughout the course of the entire movie, and life's constantly telling him you have to adjust here and there and kind of see what's going on, and you don't, and you just live in that fantasy world. Like, I hope this is gonna work out, so I'm gonna do everything I can. Same with the Passion and Whiplash. Like, you want to do everything you can to get to that point, but in the end, it doesn't end up working out. And then you're disappointed when it doesn't, but you look back and you're like, well, I really could have changed A, B, and C, and things would have gone differently. But instead, I was so blinded that I never really changed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one, dude. I'm trying to think for me, honestly. I didn't think these questions through. Imagine if I answered something like really scary, like, oh, Voldemort. I hate people who don't like magic. Okay, so this is kind of cheating because it's more of like aspire to, but partly relate to. But I just watched A Quiet Place Part 2 last night, so it made me think of this. Is John Krasinski at A Quiet Place? I feel like now, like I said, it's kind of cheating because I don't know if I'd give my life for my kid, but like I don't know. There's just kind of like a simple, kind of very straightforward way that he looks at life, and I really like the whole family dynamic. It's something that like is kind of a sweet spot in my heart, and I feel like I relate a lot to that, like like simple life or whatever it is, kind of like I could give up my dream if I found some great girl and got married, like that kind of mentality. And I think it's cool, and I think he's kind of no nonsense, and and he's a freaking great director. I just relate to John Krasinski. Forget the character. I just want to be John Krasinski. If you lived in a movie world, what world would it be? If you could choose. A Quiet Place. Again, no, I'm kidding.
No. I'd probably go with, for me personally, just The Incredibles. The first one, not the second one. I love that whole world and the metropolis they built and the whole aesthetic of it, the sleek 60s vibe.
But would you be a superhero? Because then you're kind of like not accepted in society.
Yeah. I mean, I love that whole dynamic and societal arc, and even when the guy, there's so many gray areas, and that's what I love about the world, is that it's so intricate and detailed, and like when the guy's jumping from the building and he gets saved, and he's like, I didn't want to be saved, and the whole ramifications of that legally, and there's just so many cool things and scenarios. I feel like you'd never be bored there, because there's always something that you're trying to do or be a hero in some aspect, and society, you've seen in that society that just because you're a hero and everyone likes you, kind of like in The Boys, it doesn't always mean you're a good person, and so there's such a layered world there that I think is interesting.
Kelvin, I swear, dude, you should do advertising for movies, because you will talk about movies that I have seen and known my entire life, and then after you talk about them, I'm like, I should watch that again. I never thought about it that way. Like, I never thought about Incredibles that way. Oh my gosh. I mean, this is kind of a go-to, but I'd probably say like Hobbiton. Cause like, dude, come on. Like I get to smoke weed and eat food and hang out in these beautiful green New Zealand luscious fields. Sign me up. That's great. I'm like a giant among men, 5'8" me is all of a sudden I'm really tall.
Yeah, you'd be their king.
There are no girls that are taller than me. If you had, what color lightsaber would you have if you could have a lightsaber?
Purple.
Purple. Ooh, it's got to be red. I'm a Sith Lord. I'm sorry. If you had 3 wishes from a genie and you can't do the dumb wish for more wishes, 3 wishes from a genie, what would they be?
A little bit more money, not a lot.
Why just a little bit?
Don't want my head getting big.
Okay.
Free access to the movies for life, so I don't have to pay.
Ooh, that's true.
Then I can always see movies and never have to worry about having to pay for them. And probably I can kind of game this one, but knowledge of food. Then I can always cook and I would never go hungry.
Like how to cook? Like just all the recipes in the world? Like be like a Gordon Ramsay chef?
Yes. And I would never go hungry. I would always have something.
Because you're pretty good, dude. Like when we met, you were a cook, right? You're better than me, I promise. I mean,
but yeah, no, I'm more to mean like culturally, you would know how to do everything, so that way you could always change it up and never get bored of something, or know how to cook everything, and so you would have unlimited knowledge to do that.
That's true. I'm trying to think. For me, I mean, like money, but almost just like resources, like, because I do kind of agree with you. If I just had money, I'd probably spend it the wrong way. But it's almost just like I want to make a movie and I want somebody to fund it. I don't need it to be my money. I just want there to always be somebody to fund my movie. I don't know. That's cheating. Maybe. I don't know. I'd wanna know more. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I. And that sounds silly, but like sometimes like if I had a wish, I wish I could read a book in a day, like any book I wanted in a day, because I feel like I have no time in my life and I want to do these things and I have all these things that I want to read or do whatever, but it's just like, you got to edit and you got to work and you got to do this, blah, blah, blah. And then you just lose track of time or whatever. And then you're just, dead exhausted by the end of the day. I don't know what the third one would be. I'd want to have like a great house. Like just a great that way I never have to, and a house that never gets old. Like so I never have to worry about it. It's like, okay, I don't have to fix the pipes. I just want a stress-free life. I don't have to fix anything. I don't got to get the plumber over here. Just like a house that's nice and it works. It's got a great kitchen. I'm really a 60-year-old man. For any of you new people to the podcast, if you're just learning this, I'm 60 years old on the inside. And finally, if you could have one movie or TV steed, vehicle, fantastical creature to ride, drive, what would it be?
The Hungarian Horntail. I've said it, but I love that dragon. That thing is it's
more amazing. Than like Smog or like Daenerys's dragons.
More than those two, because they're too powerful.
That's true.
They're both so smart that they could both outsmart me. I don't want that. I want something that's nice that I can have and as a pet, like a dog.
I want the horse from Tangled. I mean, come on. That's the best. Because it's not too big, but then he's got a personality, he could help me out. It's great. So yeah, I don't know, dude. I'm warming back into podcasting, not gonna lie. But this is just a little interview, I guess, for you guys. So to get to know us better, for everybody who's kind of new here. But yeah, let's kind of get into the podcast proper, so to speak. So, this week in movies news, obviously Shang-Chi came out. We're going to do a spoiler review about that, in just a bit here. But like, let's kind of talk about everything just going on in movies and different stuff like that. I don't know. What's your take on stuff going on? News, is there any topics that you want to talk about?
Yeah. Well, Halloween Horror Nights is back this year, and that's awesome. I'm so glad we're getting more horror back in the world, like Halloween Kills, Old, I thought was interesting. Candyman most recently, and I love that we're kind
How
of
was
getting.
Candyman? I didn't see Candyman.
In short, I enjoyed it. I thought it was really creative the way that DaCosta put the movie together. It's definitely not orthodox. There are a lot of weird things and risks she takes that I appreciated, and that third
Okay.
act definitely is not what you think it is.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like she really took a risk there, and I appreciated that risk overall.
Okay.
And sort of the history itself lends to the story without spoiling anything, and she's a really good visual director. I think she's gonna kill the Marvels. I think she's gonna do such a great job with that, just based on
Okay.
Candyman alone. She has such a visual style that she's not afraid of, and I appreciate that so much. And if she can harness that for the Marvels and kind of tell her own story, I think we're gonna have a really cool film.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm excited about horror this year. We got James Wan's *Malignant* coming out too, which I'm freaking pumped for. I cannot wait. We're gonna do reactions to that. We're gonna review it. I can't wait for that. But yeah, horror's kind of going off this year. Did you ever see Hill House?
No, actually, I did not. Blind Manor
Did
is the
you,
one I saw with you, but I did not see Hill House as of yet.
dude? You gotta watch Hill House, man. Hill House is worth. It's better than Blind Manor, and it's by the same guy who did. It's by Mike Flanagan, who did Doctor Sleep. And Doctor Sleep is one of my favorite horror movies of all time.
Really?
So, dude, yes, that's such a good horror movie. It's the perfect blend of heart and horror, because I think the mistake a lot of horror movies make is that it's just all horror, and then at a certain point you don't care about the characters, right? And so it's like that's why I like things like A Quiet Place, where it's like it's heart and horror, and so it's like I care so much about these characters that when there is the monster or the jump scare or whatever, I am so truly terrified for them.
Yeah, no, you make a good point. When you care about the characters, it makes everything around them so much scarier. And I felt that in A Quiet Place, both of them, and I definitely feel that in Doctor Sleep. I think I need to take another look at it. I really liked it, but I also was really trepidatious having it be a sequel to The Shining. Obviously, the book came first, but I did really like how he approached certain things and didn't just make it a jump scare fest. He actually took time and developed the characters and made it worth
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's so weird because I was trying to get like news like this week in movies. That's like the idea, right? But like honestly, I'm so annoyed because I feel like movies are all having to do with COVID, and really it's just like, will this be delayed or won't it be delayed? Is Scarlett Johansson mad that she didn't get this much money because of COVID? Or it's like it's a whole. I mean, we could talk about the whole streaming thing if you want, but it's just a whole thing, and I'm really hoping that with Shang-Chi, and then Dune is only coming out in theaters, right?
I think it's a double release, to be honest
Is
with
it?
you. Yeah, but I'm seeing it in theaters. Like, oh my god!
Oh,
Especially
I am
once
seeing it in theaters too.
saw the trailer when I saw Shang-Chi, and I was like, yeah, I have to see this in theaters. I gotta give Denny the benefit of the doubt here.
Shang-Chi
For
was the
sure.
first movie I've seen in theaters since Tenet, I think. It's been a really long time since I've been to the theaters. So it was great. So I'm hoping that people start going back to the theaters. I don't think theaters are ever going to be the same that they were. I really don't. And I also think because of that, the movie industry isn't going to be the same as it was, because the way that payment comes through with streaming is so different than the way a movie does, right? And so how you gauge box office success, so to speak, is completely different when it's on streaming as opposed to, in a movie theater. So I don't know. I'm interested to see how the industry responds. I hope that theaters don't become obsolete, because I still think that that's the way to watch a movie, frankly. Like, that is the true way to watch a movie. And you can see it because there's some movies that I feel like are meant to be seen in theaters. Something like Dune, or even some of these Godzilla movies, or Endgame, and like you can watch it outside of theaters, but it's a completely different experience.
Yeah, it definitely is. And this year, I feel like we've kind of gotten that. And I honestly feel that I miss some of that experience when you see certain films on HBO Max or certain releases where they are doing both, which I understand this one-time thing, but I do feel like it is always better and is going to be better in the theater.
Well, because also the thing I always think about is that not only is it's on streaming, but also you got to think like 50% of the people are probably watching it on their phone, which it's like maybe not 50%. Maybe that's too much. Maybe like 30%, but it's like, dude, okay, everybody can agree. You watch a movie on your phone. Like, can you imagine watching Endgame for the first time on your phone as opposed to the freaking movie theater? Like, that's honestly a completely different thing, practically. So, it's a whole thing. I'm hoping it gets back. We're gonna support theaters. We're gonna be going back to theaters as much as humanly possible. But yeah, dude, we'll see. We'll see how it all goes. Like I said, hopefully this will be a little bit more. Like, there's not really anything going on this week in movies, which kind of sucks. There's talks about Marvel's Eternals. We don't know whether that's going to be delayed or not. It seems like every other theater release is on point. Looks like James Bond is coming out in October, hopefully. There's no news about any of those things being delayed anymore, so hopefully all those are coming out. I think the only thing maybe is that Marvel's Eternals might be delayed. But really, right now in movies, because the theaters aren't fully back, there's just not a lot of crazy stuff going on this week. So I guess the title card, the big conversation that I want to have, obviously, like I said, my first movie back in theaters, Shang-Chi. It's been freaking forever since I went to the theaters. It's been forever since I've seen a Marvel movie. I didn't watch Black Widow or anything like that. So this is the first Marvel movie I've seen in a while. It's a lot, man. So we're talking spoilers because this is coming out Sunday. I'm assuming most of you guys have seen the movie. What are your thoughts? Let's get into it. Spoilers. Let's talk about this movie here.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Shang-Chi a lot. I thought that it was super interesting, first of all, to take on the villain in the beginning of the movie and kind of see his whole arc and how that progressed, and him falling in love, having kids, living a life, and how he really changed over time. And we're in spoilers. And when the wife dies, usually it's a trope. I'm like, but here I thought it really lent to the story well, because he really became a different person after that. And you saw it in everything he did with his children, with his life. It really ruined him. But he had the 10 rings, and that really became more of a weapon as time went on. I thought that was so cool, that psychological deterioration of how he was versus how he became, and his family, and the whole arc of Shang-Chi himself growing up in San Francisco and kind of maturing as time went on, but not really going anywhere. And then he gets called by his father, and they have the whole journey. And from there, I thought it progressed beautifully.
Yeah, I mean, okay, like, first things first, the action was the best action that has ever been in any Marvel movie. And look, that's what kind of pisses me off, because that's honestly, like, I like Marvel. I'm a Marvel nerd. But especially when you're reviewing it, I'm a little more critical. So, like, look, it doesn't mean I hate it, but I'm going to be more critical, like, compared to reaction videos, right? Like, reaction video, you're going to pull out the positives, whereas here, it's like, I'm going to hit it hard. I have always been a critic of action and the way it's filmed in Marvel movies. The Russo brothers did it best, but I think that a lot of times, depending on the Marvel movie, but a lot of times it's a weakness in the movies. Things like Guardians and stuff like that, the action is just... it's not the highlight, and there's other things. The characters are good, but the action's usually weak. Not only was the action amazing in this movie, it was filmed well in this movie. They showed everything. They didn't hide it. They didn't do a million cuts per punch, per swipe, per everything. I thought the way the camera worked with the action was really better than almost any Marvel movie I've ever seen. It may be some of the best action in any Marvel movie I've ever seen. Which is frustrating, because I know obviously this was kind of a take on some of the like traditional Chinese Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Like, it was reminiscent of those films, which are obviously martial arts heavy. But it's so sad to me, because I feel like just because it's a martial arts movie, the fighting is good. But that doesn't mean that movies that aren't martial arts movies can't have good fighting and can't have it filmed well. That's so frustrating to me. Like, Daredevil did it great. Punisher did it great. Why can't, some of these other things do it like that? So it's kind of a pro and a con. I wasn't a huge, so I liked the idea. I liked the feel. I really liked how the movie didn't feel like a Marvel movie. It felt like a legend, like it's the legend of the 10 rings. And it did. It felt like a Chinese legend. I feel like it did suffer a little bit as far as characters, pretty much. I feel like I really liked the idea of the dynamic between the father and the kids. I feel like that wasn't done as well as it could have been. I feel like we didn't really feel the effects of that kind of a youth on Shang as much as I would have liked. And so then I think as a result, it made kind of the conflict with the father a little bit less dramatic. Like, I liked all the ideas. I really liked the idea of the father still being in love with the wife, as opposed to, like, turning into this, like, decrepit old hating person, which a lot of movies would do. It's like he did, but then he almost was doing this, like, he was getting manipulated because he still did love his wife. I liked that a lot. I just feel like I feel like it suffered a little bit with some of the characters and the actual character beats. Like, I didn't care about Shang and his sister and the father as much as I wished I did.
No, I get that, and I think that it's definitely kind of one of those things that we could have spent more time on. I personally thought the three of them worked really well together, but I get that with a lot of the side people and characters you have to introduce, you kind of negate from that, especially when you get towards the sister's family. And I'll be straight up honest with you, it was fun for the bit, but I kind of grew tired of the whole drawing out the Mandarin plot. Like, I understand Iron Man 3 did happen and we had that, but that for me is the weakest point of the movie, where we spent all this time with Trevor when we're like, really, I felt like we should have been spending time with the family.
Yeah, I feel like we didn't really need to, like, I feel like, honestly, maybe we didn't even need to mention it. Mm-hmm. But, like, if we did, I feel like we didn't need to spend time with Trevor. I would have liked more time with, and that's the thing that frustrated me a little bit. And it's frustrating because it was, like, to me, it was almost like one of the best Marvel movies of all time. Like, it was there, but it wasn't, right? And so it was like, I was frustrated because I really liked the chemistry. I liked his relationship with Awkwafina, Casey, right? Casey, is that her name? Katie. I liked his relationship with Katie. I liked that dynamic. That was really interesting, having this, like, really close friendship, and the chemistry between all the characters was good. I liked Shang. He had charisma, right? But it was just like those emotional beats, it weren't there for me as much as I feel like they should have been. And then because of that, right, like that fight at the end with the father, like, would have been so epic. I feel like if they had spent a little bit more time on that relationship and they had shown, you know, how close Shang was to his father, maybe in the beginning, or different things like that a little bit. I think that would have made the action, which was super cool, have this, like, emotional weight to it that was, like, amazing. So, I mean, it was a solid Marvel movie. I don't think it was amazing. I enjoyed it. I had a good time. It's visually really stunning. I just feel like kind of my biggest gripe is I wish that there was a little bit more of they had spent a little bit more time on the characters, so that, like, in all of this amazing visuals and fighting and different things like that, there had been a little bit more of a weight to it.
Yeah, definitely. Kind of, we can stay with the main characters a little bit more as opposed to just going for the bit, because I know Marvel does that, and I feel like there were times when it worked, like for me with the cage fight in the beginning, and then there are times for me when they completely derailed the plot, and I was like, well, what's the point? Like, the forest in the beginning was great, and then they had the whole second act. Cool. This whole second act where they kind of ruined it, and I was like, okay, well, I get it, but you're just going for the bit here. You're not actually committing to the story.
Yeah, and a little bit in the middle there when they met Trevor, it made it feel a little bit disjointed. Like, you were like, what? And it just felt a little bit off. But dude, there were some moments that, like, I died. Like when they ended the movie and they did the after credit scene and he was like, or, dude, that killed me. Like, that was so funny. That was such a funny callback. I thought that was super cool. What do you think? Like, what is the new? So, like, I'm gonna be the old man watching Marvel movies 30 years from now, being like, Phase 1 through 4 was my day. We got Iron Man. You know, I think nothing is ever gonna beat that. But what do you think? Because we got a little bit of a taste of what the new Avengers are starting to look like. What do you think of that?
I think it's really interesting, kind of something that I feel like the MCU has to prove to everybody, and I like that, because for so long it's been the other way around, where it's like, here's our story, here's our arc, here's Endgame, now we're done. But now we're in this weird sort of turnaround period where really they kind of have to keep going, keep our interest. And I don't mean it in a weird way, just in a story-wise way. Phase 4, going forward, they have a plan, but I feel like they're going to have to kind of pull out of the box, kind of like what James Gunn did for Suicide Squad. He's like, here's things you don't know that I'm going to show you that I hope you'll like. And in the end, it worked out.
Yeah. It's almost harder than the original MCU, because now you have an example of it done just about as good as you can do it. And so not only do they have to start kind of from scratch, not quite, but kind of, and then they have to do better than they already did with these kind of new. So they're under a lot of harsh skepticism, which is a challenge. I don't know really what to think yet. We'll see. I want to see, you know, Captain Marvel and how that all plays out, and where, because watching the after credit scene, it feels like she's kind of in charge, which I'm not a huge fan of, because I don't know. I've never really liked her character that much. Like, she's fine. Marvel hasn't really done anything with her to where I'm like, oh, I want her to lead the Avengers, you know? Like I'd rather a Doctor Strange or even heck like a Spider-Man rise to the occasion and kind of be the new Captain America and lead the Avengers.
Yeah, I think, and eventually they'll have a way to do that. I just don't think she had her moment yet. I feel like for Captain America, it definitely was Winter Soldier, where people started to take him more seriously. Like, okay, this guy can actually hold his own.
Yes, but I still really liked him in Avengers. Like, it made me fall truly in love with him in Winter Soldier, but I liked him in Avengers a lot. Whereas Captain Marvel, I don't know. Maybe it's just her powers and everything like that. There just hasn't been a moment yet in the MCU where I'm like, go Captain Marvel. Like, you know.
Yeah, and I think her moment will come. Whether we accept it or not, we'll find out.
We'll
but
see.
I think they're preparing for that. Yeah,
it's just my worry. But we'll see. We'll see where it goes. I mean, I like Shang-Chi. He's cool. I love his powers. I love the visuals. I love the mechanics of the 10 rings. Like, I'm really excited. That's a very unique Marvel power. I will give them that. And that's one of the things that I really liked about this movie is it didn't feel like a Marvel movie. That's probably the biggest plus ever. Even more than Black Panther, which kind of tried to do the same thing. This truly felt like otherworldly. Like, it felt like a myth or a legend. And there was no blue beam in the sky. There wasn't any of that kind of stuff. And I liked that. It was still a little bit like giant CGI monsters fighting at the end, but they were done really well. So they looked cool at least. And I think just cool stuff like that. Like, I'm really looking forward to things like that in the MCU where it's like, okay, we've had our Captain America, we've had our Iron Mans. Let's do something different. Let's have a character who's not just the quippy guy or whatever. Let's have some powers that aren't just a laser beam or energy, kind of like Captain Marvel. Sorry, not to call her out, but something that isn't that, something that's a little more original. I really like the 10 rings because it's this very unique kind of blend of like swinging and punching and power moves that is wholly unique from anything I've seen in a Marvel movie.
Yeah, they really used that to their advantage and were able to be super creative with how they used it and how you were able to use it as a weapon and how you're able to use it as a tool. And I think that's such a cool dynamic for the end fight with him and his dad was that from the beginning they showed you that there are two ways you could use this as an offense or a defense.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so interesting that how they were able to harness that and show that in the first act and the third act, because that's something that usually we just see like Thor's hammer. It's used for one thing and one thing only, and same thing with the shield. So this is more versatility to it.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm kind of up in the air. I'm very tentatively. I'm cautiously optimistic about the MCU going forward. I don't know whether I'm gonna like it or not. I'm really not sure. You know, not a lot of people liked Black Widow. We'll kind of see when that comes out. This was solid. It wasn't particularly bad. Also, to me though, it wasn't particularly outstanding as far as the Marvel roster goes. It's a solid Marvel movie. It's up there with Thor 1 and a few of those things where it's like, oh, it's a solid movie. I really like the visuals. I like the action. I like some of the characters. I think it's worth seeing. Go out there, support your local theater. But yeah, I don't know. This is kind of a test thing. So that's going to be it for today on the episode. It's kind of our first episode of the podcast. If you guys are watching, obviously like, subscribe, the whole thing. If you're listening, if you guys want to go give us reviews and everything on iTunes or Spotify or whatever, especially because we're kind of starting out again here, it's uber helpful. So, feel free to do that. And yeah, thank you for joining us. We'll see. I think we're going to be doing this next week, but I'm really not sure. This is kind of just a test. So we'll see. But thanks for joining us. Thanks for talking. I hope you guys had a good time. Thanks for coming on, Kelvin. This was great.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And hopefully we will see you all next week.